You've done it. Everyone has. You walked past someone who needed help and you didn't stop. Not because you're cruel. Not because you didn't notice. Something else took over. Something older than you. You told yourself someone else would handle it. And in that half-second decision, you became a different version of yourself. A version that doesn't quite feel responsible. A version that doesn't quite feel seen. But the real answer is far stranger than I was busy or I didn't care. The real answer is that crowds don't just surround you. They erase you. Think about the last time you were in a packed room, a concert, a protest, a crowded train platform. Did you feel like yourself? Or did you feel like a single cell in something much bigger? Something that moved and breathed on its own? That feeling has a name. Psychologists call it deindividuation, and it was first described in 1952 by Leon Festinger, along with his colleagues Albert Pepitone and Theodore Newcomb. They noticed something unsettling. When people are folded into a group, especially an anonymous one, their sense of personal identity starts to dissolve. Individual judgment quiets down. Group impulse gets louder. You stop asking, "What do I think?" and start asking, "What is happening here?" Why would your brain do this? Why would it trade your individuality for the pulse of the crowd? Go back further. 200,000 years further. Your ancestors did not survive as lone geniuses standing apart from the group. They survived because they belonged to one. A human alone on the savannah was lunch. A human inside a tight, coordinated group was safety. Your brain evolved to prioritize group cohesion over individual judgment, because for most of human history, individual judgment without the group got you killed. So when you're swallowed by a crowd today, some ancient circuitry switches on. It tells you to synchronize, to blend, to stop sticking out. That circuitry doesn't know the difference between a hunting party from 50,000 years ago and a subway platform in the middle of a Tuesday commute. It just knows crowd detected, individuality optional. This is where it gets darker. Because losing your individuality doesn't just change how you feel. It changes what you're willing to do and what you're willing to not do. In March of 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was murdered in Queens, New York. Newspaper reports at the time claimed dozens of neighbors heard her cries and did nothing. That specific account has since been challenged and partly debunked by historians. But the psychological question it sparked was very real and very testable. Two researchers, Bibb Latané and John Darley, wanted to know why bystanders so often freeze instead of act. They ran a series of experiments. In one, participants sat in a room, alone or with strangers, while smoke began seeping in through a vent. When someone was alone, they reported it almost every time. When they were surrounded by passive strangers, most of them sat there, breathing smoke, saying nothing, waiting for someone else to move first. Latané and Darley called this diffusion of responsibility. The more people who witness something, the less any single person feels personally obligated to respond. You do the math without even realizing it. If 100 people see this, why does it have to be me? But everyone runs that same math. And so often no one moves at all. Here's the twist your instincts don't expect. You'd assume more people means more safety, more witnesses, more help, more chance that somebody, anybody, steps in. The opposite is true. The bigger the crowd, the smaller you feel, and the smaller your sense of duty becomes. Responsibility doesn't add up across a group. It divides. Is this really just about not helping strangers, though? Or does the crowd change something even deeper? In the late 1960s, psychologist Philip Zimbardo ran an experiment that pushed this idea further. He had female participants deliver what they believed were electric shocks to another person. Some wore name tags fully identifiable. Others wore hoods and oversized coats, stripped of any individual identity, anonymous inside a group. The anonymous participants delivered shocks for roughly twice as long as the identifiable ones. Anonymity didn't just reduce guilt. It seemed to unlock something. Once your name, your face, your individual identity gets absorbed into a crowd, the usual internal brakes loosen. Not because you've become a worse person, because the part of your brain that tracks "this is me," and "I will be held accountable" has quieted down, drowned out by the noise of everyone else around you. This is why online mobs feel eerily similar to physical ones, even though nobody's shoulder is touching yours. A username is its own kind of hood. A comment section is its own kind of crowd. The screen creates distance, and distance creates anonymity. And anonymity creates exactly the conditions Zimbardo found in that lab. reduced identity, reduced restraint, amplified group impulse. But de-individuation isn't only about cruelty or apathy. It can just as easily unlock generosity, joy, connection. Ever notice how singing in a crowd feels different than singing alone? How dancing at a concert with strangers feels less embarrassing than dancing alone in your kitchen with the blinds open. That's the same mechanism, flipped toward something warmer. The crowd dissolves your self-consciousness. Sometimes that lets cruelty in. Sometimes it lets connection in instead. So the crowd itself isn't good or evil. It's a kind of amplifier. It takes whatever is already present, in the group's mood, in its norms, in the moment's emotional temperature, and it turns the volume up. A crowd primed for panic spreads panic faster than any individual could feel it alone. A crowd primed for celebration spreads joy the same way. You are not simply losing yourself in a crowd. You are tuning yourself to its frequency, whatever that frequency happens to be, which raises an uncomfortable question. If your behavior in a crowd depends less on your character and more on the crowd's mood, how much of you is really steering in those moments? Modern researchers studying crowd psychology, building on Festinger's original work, now describe this less as a total loss of self and more as a shift in which self shows up. You still have identity in a crowd. It's just no longer your personal identity running the show. It's your group identity. The fan in the stadium. The protester in the march. The commuter on the platform. Each of those group identities comes with its own instincts, its own permissions, its own blind spots. Understanding this doesn't excuse the moments you looked away, but it does explain them. Your ancestors are the reason you feel the pull to dissolve into a crowd. Their survival depended on it. Your modern life is full of crowds their instincts never could have imagined. Packed trains, comment sections, stadiums holding 60,000 strangers at once, and your ancient wiring is doing its best to keep up. So next time you feel yourself disappearing into a group, notice it. Notice the moment your personal judgment goes quiet and the group's mood gets loud. That flicker of awareness is often the only thing standing between you and whatever the crowd decides to become. You've done it. Everyone has. You felt yourself vanish into something bigger than you, and mistaken that vanishing for the crowd's fault. But the real answer is far stranger. The crowd didn't erase you. It revealed which version of you was waiting, quietly, for permission to show up.